Nebraska and West Virginia are holding their primary elections today.
Yeah, these races will be the latest test of former President Trump's influence over the Republican Party, which still seems to be significant. In Nebraska, candidates Charles Herbster and Jim Pellin, as well as Brett Lindstrom, are vying for the GOP gubernatorial nomination. They're hoping to succeed term-limited Republican Governor Pete Ricketts. While Ricketts has endorsed Pellin, Mr. Trump has thrown his support behind Herbster, who faces accusations of groping from multiple women.
All right, got that all straight now. In West Virginia, the top race to watch is in the 2nd congressional district. Redistricting has pitted Republican Representatives Alex Mooney and David McKinley against one another. Mr. Trump has endorsed Mooney, while West Virginia's Republican Governor Jim Justice has backed McKinley. So joining us now for more on all of this is CBS News political reporter Adam Brewster. Hi, Adam. So we have a lot to sort of tease out here. Why has former President Trump endorsed Republican candidates in both Nebraska and West Virginia that diverge from the picks of those states' Republican governors?
Well, certainly these governors have different relationships with these politicians, or these candidates, I should say, than the former president necessarily does. If you look at Nebraska specifically, Charles Herbster, a longtime ally of the former president, a big donor to Mr. Trump's presidential campaigns in 2016 and 2020. And Pete Ricketts, the governor of Nebraska, who is term limited, has expressed concerns about Herbster, particularly in the wake of those groping allegations against Herbster. Now, we should note that Herbster fiercely denies those accusations against him, but you've seen Ricketts express some concern about that, and he has talked about how he believes that Jim Pellin is the right type of Republican to be running Nebraska. But it's worth noting, you mentioned in there is a third horse in this race. That would be State Senator Brett Lindstrom. So neither the Trump endorsement nor the endorsement from Governor Pete Ricketts really winnowed this field down to 2. There are still 3 credible candidates sort of vying and who will be closely watching the results tonight to see who ultimately emerges victorious. And then when you look at West Virginia, you saw Jim Justice, the governor there, sort of come out and say, you know, that he liked that David McKinley voted for the bipartisan infrastructure bill because it is something that's very important to West Virginia. The state needs money to help rebuild some of its infrastructure. And when you saw Trump come out and support Alex Mooney, he specifically said that he liked that Mooney didn't support that bill and didn't vote for the January 6th committee. So again, just some political differences there, even within the Republican Party, between the governors and the former president, and particularly the relationship he has with the particular candidates in those states.
Adam, what Democratic races should we have our eyes on in these 2 red states, and how realistic are the Democrats' chances in these very solid red states?
These are, you know, the races to watch tonight are mostly on the Republican side because of the political makeup of those states. Now, one, you know, race that could be worth keeping an eye on in November is Nebraska's 2nd congressional district. That encompasses much of Omaha. It's an area where Democrats have been trying to pick up a seat. They have a couple of candidates running tonight, including State Senator Tony Vargas, someone who National Democrats, you know, feel good about, who can run against Congressman Don Bacon when he seeks re-election. That's a seat that's rated likely Republican by the Cook Political Report, but many of these other congressional seats are deeply red, and certainly the statewide races will be difficult. State Senator Carol Blood is expected to be the Democratic gubernatorial nominee in Nebraska. Of course, we have seen sometimes when candidates have particular baggage, even in red states, it can drag them down. But Republicans feel good about their chances in Nebraska, regardless of which candidate emerges victorious in that primary tonight.
And Adam, as you know, a new issue has sort of presented itself in many of these races. How important is the role of abortion rights in these races in the wake of last week's Roe v. Wade Supreme Court leak?
Right. Certainly it has injected that back into campaigns. And I want to focus particularly on the state level, Tanya and Mola, because that's where we're going to see this issue really play out and where the needle can really move is sort of across different states who take actions to either add more restrictions or perhaps ban abortion altogether. We've seen the top Republican candidates for governor in Nebraska come out and say that they support adding restrictions or ending abortion. That will be interesting to watch. You know, whoever wins that primary continue to push that message. Nebraska tried to pass an abortion trigger law earlier this year, but it didn't make it through the state legislature, so that would have, you know, put in a ban on abortion once if Roe versus Wade were appealed and kicked back to the states, as you know that draft opinion suggests that it may be. But certainly that reinvigorated that issue in this campaign. But you sort of hear those candidates in Nebraska in particular singing from a similar songbook in terms of how far they want to go and the fact that they want to add restrictions on abortion or end it altogether. But again, the states, the gubernatorial races in particular, are going to be where that issue really plays out, whether it's in Nebraska or any other state across the country.
Right. And like you said, these are reliably red states. All right, Adam Brewster, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your insight.
Thank you both.